Okay, everybody, thank you for watching the last video. This is a continuation of that video, and this video talks about how DNS works. So DNS. Let's quickly run through a refresher from last video. I said DNS was domain name service, right? If you remember very well, domain name system. Domain name service or system or domain name server, depending on how you want to look at it. It is what translates domain names. That is, those are our friendly names like Facebook.com, UBA.com, Yahoo.com, to IP addresses. IP addresses are actual identifiers for resource carriers on the internet. When I say resource carriers, I mean probably a server somewhere. Now, in a network, every device has an IP address if you're going to be part of a network. And I told you earlier on that the internet is a big network, a collection of different networks connected together. So it's a very big network. So IP addresses are how we identify resources on the internet. But because there are so many resources, we can remember all the IP addresses together at the same time. So we want to give them a friendly name, what we as human beings can identify with, like Facebook.com, Webpedia.com, whatever that means. For example, Dealday.com, and no all those .com, .org, whatever each site that we go to. So, how does DNS work? I've told you what DNS does. Now, today we're going to be talking about how DNS works. So, by reason of example, I'm going to tell you what happens when I carry my big head and at my system here, whatever kind of system that is, and I type in www.dealday.com. Now, what really happens is this. Let's say this is Dealday, somewhere on the internet. I have the internet here, and is connected to the internet somehow. I'm equally connected to the internet somehow. And I type in www dot dealday.com. So when I type in that www.dealday.com, there is actually an invisible dot at the end of it. All right. So every site you go to has that dot. That dot is what we call the root server. Is what we call what? Dot. The root server. The root servers on the internet are like what actually owns the internet, like the registry of the internet, like the library of internet names, internet domain names, so to speak. Yeah, because it's the root server that tells us where the top level domains are. Those are the .com, .au, .us, .biz, .org. Those top level domains. That is where we find their record in the root servers. You might want to take a look at what is the root servers on the internet. I'll be showing you a good bit of resources online. You can also find them yourself. Root servers. If my internet will be fast enough, I think I can quickly show you before I move forward. Yeah, root server. What is the root server? The root server is a name server for the root zone of the DNS of the internet. It directly answers requests in the root zone. And what do we mean in the root zone? Those are the TLDs I just mentioned earlier on. You can see it here. Those are, and by returning list of authoritative name servers for appropriate TLDs. What that means, I'm going to talk about it right now. So, this is what happens. Now, in my network, I probably have a DNS server, right? I probably have a DNS server in my network that lies to himself that is doing DNS. In actual fact, it's actually doing DNS. So, when I type in www.dealday.com, which I have done here, and you can see this guy rolling, what it's actually doing is trying to resolve that name to an IP address. How does that happen? And it's done that. It's now going to the IP address and it's taking the resources and showing me. Great. Everybody does that at one point or the other. So what happens is this guy has what we call a cache. A cache. Yeah, I call it cache. Don't mind me. So they call it. It checks his cache, which is his own personal record, and says, "Okay, cache. Do I have the IP address for dealday.com? Okay, no, I don't have it. So if it doesn't have it, it now sends a request to its configured DNS server, to its own configured DNS server, and it says, DNS server, give me the IP address of which site was I going to do there? Give me the IP address of www.dealday.com, right? So .dealday.com. That's what it asks from its DNS server. Now that kind of request is called a query. All right, and in this kind of query, it must get a reply. It must get a reply. More like someone say, give me a reply or tell me you don't know it. Give me the IP address of dealday.com or tell me you don't know it. That is what? A recursive query. So it sends a recursive query to its DNS server and say, DNS server, give me the IP address of dealday.com or tell me you don't know it. I must try to get a reply for you. So the DNS server checks its own what? Record. Has somebody on the network gone to dealday.com before in the past time frame that's defined whatever in the DNS server? No, because the DNS server also keeps a record. So if by adventure maybe 1 minute ago somebody else on my network went to dealday.com, it will still have that record and say, okay, instead of me that just typed in dealday.com, now types now request for the IP address, instead of having to go to the internet to ask for it again, it keeps a record of it for a period of time. So if it still has that record, it will just reply me, I have the IP address. This is the IP address of dealday.com. Let me take for example, the IP address of dealday.com is let me say for example the IP address of dealday.com is 192.17.6.4. I'm just picking any number out of my mind right now. Okay, that is 192.17.6.4. That's the IP address of dealday.com's web server. Of course, they are going to have some other servers in their network, like their own personal DNS server, like their own mail server, or some other servers that provides applications resources for them. This looks like an N, not okay. So dealday.com is residing at this address 192.17.6.7.4, and I don't have a record for it in my DNS server yet. So my DNS server now goes to who? Yes, you guessed right. The root server. That guy. It goes to the root server. The DNS server now goes to the root server and says, Oga, give me the IP address of dealday.com. Of course, we know that this is www.dealday.com. Alright, so it goes to the root server, and the root server says, well, I don't know where the IP address of www.dealday.com, but I know where the .com servers are. So he gets a reply from this guy. and he opens up the reply and says, the reply says, I don't know where the server for dealday.com is, but I know where the .com server is. So it sends you, okay, go and meet the .com server at so address. So this guy now goes again, sends a request to who? The .com server. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Yeah, you guessed right. Sends it to the who? The .com server. Oh, that's not a good server. Now let me draw a good server. So sends it to who? The .com top level domain server. Alright. So on getting to the top level domain server, he asks this guy, please give me where www.dealday.com is. Now mind you, www itself is a resource, all right, because I'll come back to that, but www dot in itself is a resource. We can add we can have other services running on the server. It can be running FTP server, which runs on different ports. Other we can run web services, which is www or HTTP. We can run other kind of services. I just said FTP, mail, SMTP, or can also be running on it. Maybe it's also the mail server. All this runs on different ports. So www is a port. Is port 80. Runs on port 80 and is a resource that is running on 192.17.6.4. Okay, so this guy goes to the .com server, which is a TLD, a top level domain, and says, please give me the IP address of www.dealday.com. This guy now replies and says, Mister, I really don't know where the IP address of www.dealday.com. However, I know where the domain dealday.com resides. So I'm going to give you the IP address of dealday.com, and it resides at so IP address. Oh, this guy now says, wonderful. I really enjoy that. I'm going to now send a request to the domain server, the server that handles this domain, and says, please give me the IP address of www.dealday.com. Sorry, I need to quickly write this. Dealday.com. This is the guy that handles that domain. I says, oh yes, I know where that server is. That server is located at 192. This guy now, oh yeah, great. Excuse me. This guy now replies to it and says, yes, I know where that resource is. Is located at 192.17.6.4. The guy now says, wonderful, thank you for giving me that. You see, all this process here is also a kind of query. It's called iterative, and yes, don't mind my iterative is an kind of iteration. Iterative query. So we've talked about two kinds of query. The recursive query here, that is, give me a response or tell me, in fact, just give me a response, give me the IP address or tell me you don't know it, shall give me one response. That is recursive query. So this guy does iteration by going to the root server, then going to the .com server, who sends it to the dealday.com server, and that one now gives you the IP address of the resource is looking for, which now goes back to this DNS server, and this DNS server now passes back that record and says, okay, Mr. Femi Bakari, yes, you and your big head, yes, yeah, I am somewhere. I don't know what happened to my legs and my arms, but somehow I managed to type in www.dealday.com, and this DNS server just replied me. So once I get there, I now send my request. I now send my request to dioday.com at what IP address? 192.17.6.4. My request to him is, please give me your web page. So upon getting that request, that server now says, "Oh, you want my web page? So I'm going to give you all this." So I'm now able to see all these resources. That is exactly what happens when you. Wow, this is wonderful. I would like to have a taste of this. Yeah, but not now. Not now. I'm trading. Okay. Excuse me. So that is what happens when you type an IP address, a name in your browser. So as a proof of concept, I'm going to quickly retrieve the IP address of dioday.com, and I'm going to show you that that web page you're seeing behind my command prompt window is actually an IP address. It's actually sitting on an IP address somewhere. So for me to do that, I will do this IP config slash display DNS. Okay, that would it's done a lot of resolution. Yeah, right. You didn't see this. You didn't see me do this. Yeah, don't worry. So let's look for dioday.com inside there. I just want to pick out the IP address of dioday.com somewhere. Yes, yes, yes. These are some of the sites I've been to today. I've been to a lot of Google sites, one way or the other. Cash and carry. That wasn't me. I didn't go to cash and carry. Okay. Let's see. Route to check. Yes, this is the record of dioday.com. Yes, this is the record for dioday.com. So dioday.com is actually sitting at 66.216.67.77. So if I go into my browser, I'm going to open a whole new browser and I'm going to paste that there, 66.216.67.77, and I press enter. You will see that it's sent. It's doing nothing. Is my internet on? Yes, it is. So I pressed enter. So what it's doing right now is sending a request directly to the dioday.com server, and I'm expecting a reply. Oh yes. For 1 minute, I thought it was going to disappoint me. Yes, I'm getting a reply. Yes, concept proven. You can see that it's resolved to what? dioday.com. So basically, you can see the concept has been proven. You can see we've been able to access dioday.com via the IP address alone, and we understood what the root server was and a couple of other concepts. I've kept it as simple as possible in this training, and I hope you understand it as much as possible, as best as possible. Thank you for watching. Just right below you, you can see the like button. You can like this video. You can leave a comment for me. If you want me to do something better, I will listen to you, and I hope we'll be able to give ourselves more in this training series. Thank you for listening, and I hope this has been very, very informative for you. Thank you.